Republican Senator Ben Sasse sits on the Judiciary Committee and joins us now. Good evening, Senator.
Hi, Shannon. Good to be here.
Okay, you had a very full-throated defense today saying it's not the government's business what anybody's religious beliefs are. And there are folks who are saying, listen, you're not spelling the true picture of the questioning that's gone on with Judge Barrett. Mother Jones says this, wondering if she was a handmaid. Now, they're using this word. And what that might mean in a Supreme Court justice is a far cry from asking John F. Kennedy whether he had more loyalty to the Pope than the United States. So are those different situations, Senator?
No, they're the same situation. So these people, so many of these people on the left who attack religious Americans, they don't know any history, they don't know any theology. And so I'm not Catholic, but the Catholics regularly use the term handmaiden to go back to the Annunciation of Jesus and the idea that lots of people are dedicated to the work of the kingdom of God. And Amy Barrett as a handmaiden, I mean, if Jesse Barrett and the Catholic Church are trying to oppress Amy Barrett, they're doing a really crappy job because the woman seems to excel in every domain of life. And Mother Jones doesn't really have any understanding of much of that reality, either historically or in America today.
So then, with that in mind, let's turn to the New York Times, which says under the headline, Rooted in Faith, Amy Coney Barrett represents a new conservatism. They say this, to Judge Barrett's critics, she represents the antithesis of the progressive values embodied in Justice Ginsburg, her life spent in a cocoon of like-minded thinking that in many areas runs counter to the views of a majority of Americans. Do you think, Senator, that a majority of Americans cannot relate to somebody like Judge Barrett?
No, I mean, obviously that's just goofy talk. But let's just back up. This habit that we have now, the New York Times is one of the leaders of it, but so much of the media does this. They talk about the Supreme Court as just another political institution. The progressive wing or the conservative wing of the Supreme Court, a Republican justice or a Democratic justice, all of that confuses basic civics because judges put on a black robe for a reason. Judges don't have to get elected for a reason. Judges have lifetime tenure for a reason, and that's because the Supreme Court is supposed to be an apolitical branch. The two political branches, the legislative and the executive branches, those people get elected, those people pass laws, voters can fire those people. Voters in America can't fire judges, and that's because judges are not supposed to confuse themselves as policymakers. And that kind of so-called news story just distorts basic American civics. It's not helpful.
Well, a lot of folks could have learned something from some of what you said out in civics today. And regardless of what party that you're with or identify with or don't identify with, I mean, there are basic things about the structure of our government we all need to be better informed about. Now, back in 2017, when some of the senators pushed Judge Barrett, as she was then being confirmed to the federal bench, about religious issues, they know it did not play well. And so I've heard from Democrats over the last few weeks, we're not going after her religion. We're not going to do that. We are going to press her on issues like abortion, Roe v. Wade, LGBTQ issues, same-sex marriage, what she would do to undo or change some of these decisions. But we're not going to involve her religion. Can they do that? I mean, are we talking about two different things there?
Well, first of all, I mean, it would be a good thing if the Democrats on the Judiciary Committee decided to conduct themselves more honorably this round, the next 3 days, than they did when Judge Barrett was before us as a Notre Dame law faculty member in 2017. And there were repeated questions about whether the dogma lived too loudly in her, whether she considered herself a devout Catholic or a serious Catholic, who the people of praise were. None of this stuff is the business of the Senate Judiciary Committee. We have a First Amendment with religious liberty as its heart of the cluster of freedoms of speech, press, religion, assembly, and protest. But we also have a no religious test clause in the main body of the Constitution before you even get to the Bill of Rights. So it would be great if the Democrats on the Judiciary Committee comported themselves more appropriately. But I think what you saw today in opening statements is a preview of questioning you're going to see tomorrow, which is people trying to ask her lots and lots of policy questions. I also sit on the Senate Finance Committee, and sometimes today it really felt like we were in a hearing that was about the technical minutia about how the Affordable Care Act works, Affordable Care Act, Obamacare works, and they were asking all these policy and outcome-based topics or framing them up for their questions tomorrow. Again, that's not appropriate. What we should be talking about is her temperament, her character, her judicial philosophy. Does she know what the job of a judge is? This isn't Republican versus Democrat stuff. It's American stuff.
Okay, we got to go, but I have to very quickly ask you, because you used the word today, would you like to define jackwagon for us?
I had a lot of my dad was a football and wrestling coach growing up, and I had a lot of coaches who wanted to be really careful that when they lost their cool, and as a quarterback who, made a lot of errant passes myself, instead of being called an a-hole by a coach, you'd often be called a jackwagon. So I think it was kind of a Nebraskanism that to me was just a coach trying to whack me upside the head and not quite cross the line, and it turned out jackwagon wasn't quite as widely known in America as it is in Nebraska football fields.
People can Google that exchange if they'd like to see what that was all about today. All right, Senator, we'll see you tomorrow at the hearings bright and early.
Thanks, Shannon.